Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am just sharing this really quickly. I am so happy to be back for Food for the Chakras. And, this week I am alone, as you may see. I usually have one of my sister witches with me, but timing and life events are not working out. And my higher self was calling to me and telling me it was time to just do it on my own. And so I would really appreciate any engagement if you're live here. And if not, then, watch it afterwards, comment and ask questions, and, I'll be here with you. I think that it's a really appropriate time to be talking about the third eye. We're entering into the Lionsgate portal on Saturday, actually, 8/8. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Lionsgate at the end. But I think that, the main aspect to remember with the Lionsgate portal is that this is a connection between the physical and the spiritual worlds. And this is what we're doing as we ascend through the chakras. We are moving through our physicality from the earth to the heavens. And so it's a perfect time to set your intentions, to, really watch your dreams come true. And if you don't have a practice yet, great time. I've got a couple days to start one. If you don't want to really start a full-on thing, just take a few moments to breathe. So let's just start with a breath. It's been a day. It's been quite a day. I'm going to just shake out my body, get it all out. And let's take a breath together. Thank you for doing that with me. I feel so much better. I think it's always really important to ground in, especially when dealing with food, because we put so much of our energy, our magic into the food that we create, and we feed it to ourselves. We feed it to the people that we love. And so it's really important to center yourself and make sure that what you're feeding is the food that you want to nourish yourself with, the way you want to nourish everybody around you. So I drew a card. I actually drew one and then two more fell out. So I think I'm just going to focus on one, but it's from the Animal Spirit, the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit, one of my favorite oracle decks by Kim Krantz. So I thought it was really interesting that the first card that came out was the hyena. And you can see there's the dark and the light of the moon in the hyena, and it's a symbol of fire. And I'm just going to read the description. The hyena, humor, wit, sarcasm. The hyena personality is a jokester and a crowd pleaser, but below the surface, there are unfulfilled dreams to be realized. When the hyena card appears, it's time to reflect on your reliance on sarcasm and humor to express your truth. Are you using jokes to hide old resentments in relationships or to mask things that you feel uncomfortable discussing? What would you happen if you took your goals seriously? When in balance, charming, witty, fun to be around. When out of balance, scrappy, petty, suspicious. To bring into balance, sobriety. Now, it's a really, I thought, interesting card for the third eye, because a lot of the third eye is, all of the third eye is really seeing into the unknown world. We are moving out of our physicality, our beingness here in this third dimensional reality of Earth, and really going and tapping into this unknown world. And for myself, I find that sometimes I try to hide my own gifts, or I don't speak my truth because I'm worried about how other people will receive me. And so I think that, I have been really using this the last few months, but especially this last month, I've been really kind of going really deep into my inner work and working really hard with actually a lot of teachers right now. And I've been really stepping into my power, and I've been seeing where I'm inhibited in sharing my truth, like, being here alone and not having, a friend, my sisters to, help me through. And, this is the time to really kind of center ourselves and be still with ourselves. And, I love the word bring into balance. The way to do it is sobriety. And, it's kind of what I've been doing which is just, not looking for an outside source to make me feel comfortable and to awaken my gifts. All of it's within me, and I want to talk about it with you because it's all within you as well. So we are going to be making a chocolate cake, which is so wonderful because the third eye is, you know, all about really fun foods, actually, purple foods. So we're going to be using eggplant and, you know, chocolate, which is a really massive superfood. You see, I like to use it a lot. We'll get into discussion about all the various ingredients in depth, actually, maybe towards the end, because I want to discuss a lot of the aspects of the third eye, which is why I chose the ingredients that I did. But we're going to get this cake in the oven so that we have enough time to see what it looks like at the end. I don't want to leave you hanging. So just to look at the recipe really quickly, this is a cake that we're using purple foods. As you can see, I'm wearing purple. I got my purple lipstick on, all my favorite things. And we're going to be using eggplant. Now, I cook with a lot of vegetables in my desserts. I mean, you saw, if you've been following, you saw with the heart chakra, we did kale in the chocolate. You know, I put beets in the other one for the root chakra. What's wonderful about chocolate is that it works with a lot of great chakra, all the chakras, so you can actually add it to a lot of things. But I liked eggplant because it's really high in fiber. It's got a lot of nutrients in it. But it's really, really high in fiber, and I can use it the way I would use like a zucchini, for example. The only difference is that I would cook the eggplant, unlike a zucchini, which I would use raw when using it in a baked good. So what I did was I took the eggplant. This is about a 1 pound eggplant. You know, it's just a nice size. You can see how it fits in my hand. Cut off this top. You know, obviously wash it, and then, you know, just rub a little bit of coconut oil, slice it in half vertically, and then just lay it into a baking dish and broil it. So you want to broil this for about, I don't know, like 20 minutes or so until it's soft. It's going to look really mushy, gushy. It's really soft. This is the way you want to have it, okay? So I had this in the food processor. I am just mushing the rest in. You take it out of the skin. Now, I highly encourage eating the skin of a lot of food because there's a lot of vitamins and nutrients in it. But, you know, for a baked good, for something that you want to have like smooth consistency and stuff, you know, that's why I'm taking out the skin in this case. So I just kind of smushed that eggplant in there. And to that, I'm also adding, we're going to add a banana. Okay, so the sweetness is going to come from maple syrup and banana. And again, why I'm doing this is because I like to use whole foods as much as possible for sugar and sweetness, because what that does is you are lowering the glycemic index. What that means is the level of sugar in your blood. When you take refined sugar, it spikes your blood. And when you spike your blood with sugar, you're not using it properly, and it's actually damaging a lot of your cells and organs. And so when you use whole foods like bananas and dates and even just like other fruits that have like a lot of sugar content, like peaches and stone fruits in general, you're sweetening it with the fiber. And so it takes a longer time to digest, and therefore it's better for you. Now, natural products like maple syrup and things like that are better than refined sugars. So, you know, I add some of that in. I already have the banana in there, and I already have the maple syrup in there. Now, I'm also saving this banana peel because I just made banana peel bacon over the weekend. It's really insane. I've just been thinking of different ways that I can minimize food waste and actually increase nutrition in my body. The banana peel actually does have a lot of nutrients. And I was reading about how the fact around the world, people actually eat banana peels. They use them in curries. They do all sorts of things with them. So I was like, I wonder what I could do. And bacon came to my mind. I don't know why, but apparently it's a thing. So I think I must have tapped into some collective energy there. And I made my own recipe, and I'll be posting a video about that. But so save your banana peels. Don't throw them away, because you can use them for other things. The other thing that we're adding in is vanilla. So I like to use vanilla bean paste. You can use vanilla extract. It just doesn't have, it's just a very different flavor profile. Vanilla bean paste is more like the actual vanilla bean. So vanilla bean looks like this. And it's, you know, it's a really awesome bean. You can, when you're using vanilla bean, what you want to do is slice it lengthwise and kind of just create a little slit. And then you use the back of a knife to slice out the vanilla bean. Now, I'm not using actual vanilla bean in this recipe because these are really expensive. These are really tasty and really good. And you wanted to use it in things that have like high vanilla flavor, vanilla cake, whatever you're making, even a vanilla pudding. So it's nice to have that be the strong component. In this one, we're gonna have the chocolate. We're gonna be using lavender essential oil. And, you know, because that is also associated with the third eye, and you want those flavors to come through rather than the vanilla. But vanilla is a great way to kind of trick your body into thinking it's eating something sweet. So it's a, you know, because we associate it, you know, biologically, and I think even mentally with sweetness, our body thinks that we're actually consuming sugar when we're not. So vanilla bean is always great to add to anything you want to sweeten. I'm going to add, I forget what I wrote on the recipe. I think about a tablespoon. You know, you can see that I'm pretty loose when it comes to like some things like this. With baking, you want to be a little more careful with, you know, the ingredients and the ratios. But, you know, I tend, when I'm baking with vegetables in it, things tend to be a little different anyway. So, you know, you can play a little bit. I just put in about a tablespoon. I can eyeball it, measure it out, do whatever you need. So, that's all in there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to melt chocolate. So what I have here are just dark chocolate chips. Now, we talked about third eye and chocolate being great. Make sure it's as dark as you can get it or semi-sweet, because when we're talking about chocolate and actually really being beneficial to our bodies, it needs to be dark chocolate, milk chocolate, all of that sugar in there, the, you know, other aspects like dairy, whatever. These things are more for sweetness and sugar. They don't really do anything for us. You know, think about like cacao ceremonies from Mexico and the ancient traditions that used to use cacao. So it's all about activating, you know, our body, and cacao is actually a really great connector between, you know, our different chakras, as I mentioned, because it's associated with so many of them, from our root chakra, which I like to associate it with, and sacral, because it's about connection and sharing. We share chocolate with one another, right? And then there's the aspect of the heart where we feel, again, another aspect where we show love by giving people chocolate, like on Valentine's Day. And it's a really important activator of the third eye. So I'll grab my little mitt here. So we're going to be melting the chocolate on a double boiler. What I have here is a pot with a little bit of water and a bowl that sits on top of the pot. It does not touch the water. The reason you don't want it touching the water is because you don't want the chocolate burning. So I am using this little induction burner, which I'm still trying to figure out. We were gifted that when our kitchen flooded and we were living with our kitchen in the garage. And so, you know, it's temperamental. I'm still learning how to work with it, but, you know, we're going to melt that chocolate. And meanwhile, okay, good, it's heating up. The other thing you want to make sure is when you're melting chocolate, not to get any water or anything in it, because you will find that it'll cause the chocolate to separate. It does really, you know, weird things. So again, no water on the bottom, no water on top. That's it. Okay. So we're letting that melt. Now in a separate bowl, what I've added are all the dry ingredients. So what I have here is half a cup of almond flour. You know, they make almond flour in all different varieties now. I buy a super refined almond flour. You can take nuts and grind yourself if you've got one of the dry grinders. But this is something that, you know, is really, you know, it can retain a lot of nutritional value when it's not that like super fine. Like I've seen some places that have this super fine almond flour. I'm not sure how they get it. Hold on, I'm gonna go turn on the oven because I realized I didn't do that. One of the first things that you want to do is preheat your oven. Preheat it to about 350 degrees. And that way you can have your cake baked. So we have the almond flour. What else do I have in here? I have cacao powder because, again, raw cacao. So I like to use, you can buy lots of different companies make raw cacao powder, but this is going to give you, it's not sweetened with anything. So this is going to give you all the benefits of cacao. And then you have 1 tablespoon of ashwagandha. We'll talk about ashwagandha at the end. But ashwagandha is a root powder. You can, find it in natural food stores. Worst case scenario, Amazon has it. And we also have baking powder, baking soda, and salt. So, the typical ingredients. So now you can see, I don't know if you can see, but the chocolate's melting, and you can just see the steam rising, I'm sure. But I'm just melting the chips, that's all. So this is called tempering chocolate. And I'm doing this so that I can incorporate some nice richness and moistness into the cake with that chocolatey flavor so that it's not just coming from the cacao powder alone. So let's see. All right, mixing this up here. So, with the third eye, this is like, I think one of the chakras that people really know a lot about, because we talk a lot about opening up the third eye. We talk a lot about, this idea of being able to see without seeing. And so, one of the fun facts that I was thinking about, because I always like to just think about the different ways I've learned about these chakras. I guess a friend, a teacher. It was when I was really associated with the Himalayan Institute of Yoga Science and Philosophy. And he was telling me, do you know why, women in India wear bindis? And I said, bindis are, wearing that piece of, jewel sticker, whatever you want to call it, on your forehead. And he said that it was to suppress the third eye of women. And, when you think about what it means to suppress the third eye, it's, you want to block it in any way you can. Let me just show you this chocolate. So this chocolate is, sorry, I don't know where my camera is, nice and melty. I'm just adding it in. But he was saying that it was because women were, they were really progressing in the ability to see the unknown. And I really do believe that this is a very strong feminine quality. It's not that males can't do this. Of course they can. We all have the male and female in us, and the balanced person is with the balanced male and female tendencies. And so what was really interesting is that there is this kind of culture of understanding that we are being suppressed or oppressed in various different ways. And I think that the third eye is one of the most important aspects to think about when we think about the ways that society is trying to keep us from our own power. So let me just blend this, and then we'll get back into that conversation. Talking over this, so. All right, so you just want this to be into a nice smooth batter. So what I took away from that conversation was, bindis do have a meaning in India. They do mean that, people are married, women are married. That's, one of the reasons women wear bindis. But really, it's just become a fashion statement. It's become like a piece of jewelry, like having a nose ring, having earrings, all these things. And so that's the way I take it. I love to wear bindis. I think they're a lot of fun. I totally decorate myself up with them. And I remind myself that, there is nothing physical that can oppress me or take away my power. That I have the capability, that there is no one or no thing that can prevent me from activating who I am. So I say this because I think that, you know, as we talk about the third eye, I just want us to remember that we ourselves are, you know, the greatest technology that the earth has ever seen. And what I mean by technology is that we are a function of systems and we are capable of so much. And so when we are able to use all of our powers, all of our abilities, and really believe in them and not hide them, right? Not hide them, not hide behind them, not use humor, not use, I mean, yeah, use humor in a way that is, you know, making people laugh, and but not to hide who you are. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I am just mixing up the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. And I'm making sure that it's, you know, as smooth as it can be. And I whisked all the dry ingredients together before I added these wet ingredients, because again, you just want everything to be nicely incorporated. All right. What I have here is a loaf pan. I put a piece of parchment paper in there. That makes it easier to come out. There's also, you know, some, I greased the sides. You know, I use a loaf pan. I would use a springform pan. This is what I really like to use for cakes. These except for that when they drop out. But these springform pans, they, you know, they can hold, you know, they'll hold the cake in there. They'll bake like that, and then you just lift them off easily. These are really great, but very few people have them. So I didn't want to, you know, not allow you to make this cake and make it in the way you want. You can use anything that you want. This is not a really heavy batter. I didn't want to double it. I didn't want to make it bigger because there is a lot of water in this batter. And so I found that the loaf pan was easier. So I'm just pouring this whole mixture into there. And we will get this into the oven. And I'm going to ask you guys to help me out because I can sometimes be not good with timers, so to keep an eye on time. But I have my little R2D2 timer here who will help me set the time. But a shout out would be great when it is time. Hold on. All right, so we got this here. I'm going to give this pan here, I'm just going to give it a little bit of like a tap down. And what this does is it removes all the air bubbles so that, you know, it can just bake more evenly. If you see a lot of bubbles coming out, just keep tapping it until you don't see any more. So I'm going to go put this in the oven. In the oven, I got R2 here, my little R2. I'm going to set the time. So I'm going to bake this for about 45 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is check it at about that time. I do find variations with the baking time. It really does have to do with how well the eggplant was cooked and, you know, how much water came out. So just keep, you know, checking it. And I'm putting a fork in it or a toothpick. Move this over here. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the third eye. So as we're going through the chakras, we started with our root chakra, which is the mantra that you want to repeat is I am. And then you move into the sacral, which is I feel. Then you move into the solar plexus, which is I can. Then you move to the heart, which is I love. And to the throat, which is I speak. So now, as we move up into the third eye, it's I see. And the third eye is called the Ajna chakra. Ajna means beyond wisdom. And, you know, what's really interesting is that this chakra incorporates like all of our upper head area. And it is the senses. It's, you know, sense of sight, sense of smell, sense of hearing, the nervous system. And when you put the nervous system in, that incorporates the other senses like touch, right? Because this is where we process it all. You know, it regulates the pineal gland, which we'll talk a lot about. But what the third eye really is about seeing beyond, right? Beyond wisdom. So it's beyond our senses. This is not just, using our senses to get information, but like stretching our senses beyond. One of the people that I'm working with right now, I found him on Instagram, maybe through Jenny Biondo, I can't remember. But his name is Obsidian Blade. And he, was on, there was a group Zoom call, and he was talking about, really starting to use your senses to see beyond the horizon. So we started with the eyes, and it was this concept of, we're outside. If I step outside my door, there are houses and cars and trees and everything that's blocking my line, that view of the horizon. So how can we see beyond? How can we see through that? How can we see the horizon and always know where the horizon is? And it's understanding those contours of the earth and being in touch with the earth that way. And now what we've been working on is hearing the horizon. This is so incredible, because to stand outside and to hear the sounds, I mean, I feel like everybody's back to normal around here, even though we're not. And, I don't, I don't even know what to think about what normal is. But, there's traffic on the roads, and there's, people out, and, dogs barking, and, whatever's going on. And so you hear the noise that's there. And then when you start to stretch your sense of hearing, you start to hear things that you just weren't paying attention to before. You began to filter them out. And it's about how far you can stretch that sense. How far can you go? And so you can do this with all of our we can do this with all of our senses. And I think it's a really beautiful practice to just see like how big we are. We're this energetic field. Our senses are limiting us to this kind of 3D reality. And we are really bigger and broader than that. And we can use our senses to think bigger and broader than that, and to feel it, and to just know it. I mean, we used to guide ourselves by our intuition. I mean, think about the fact that like humans were living in nature with animals, with whatever, creating whatever. And, people, tribal cultures today still do this and even other places. But we'd gotten to the point where we've forgotten how to use our senses, and we're distracted, right? We have like technology, we have our phones, we have, whatever that we're listening to, our headphones on while we're walking. There's light pollution everywhere. There's, all these gadgets of distraction. I mean, and it's not that they're not useful gadgets. They are, but they do distract us. They distract us from being able to build our senses. And so I encourage you every so often, just try to really hone in on those senses and use that extra sensory perception to really tell you about the reality around you. And that is part of the seeing with the third eye. It's not just the visions. It's really using this information, using the senses, using all of the senses that are encompassed right here. And, that our brain and our nervous system processes to determine the world around you. So one of the stories that I wanted to tell is that, I used to be scared of the dark, and I had good reason to be scared of the dark. I had a very unsafe childhood, and it was something that kind of carried with me through adulthood. I mean, even to several years ago. And this is not something that, was just when I was a child or, and I got over. This was a really palpable fear of the dark. And I think, aside from an unsafe childhood, to it too. Like, I do believe that there was extrasensory things that I was seeing and hearing and not understanding. And, a chaotic, unsafe environment just doesn't, lend to really truly being able to understand what these other not, perceptible things are. And so I really did, hide and squash and just try to ignore all these different things that were around me. And I was always out in nature. I was always out in the woods, and I would be really scared. Like, it was just, there was so many things around me. I'd get overstimulated by nature, like that tree branch, that twig, that, I don't know, whatever it was, just those tiny little noises, they would startle me, and I'd be so scared. And, over the years, I tried to train myself to be, more confident in the dark, but, I want to give a huge shout out to the Modern Witch Movement, not only for hosting me here, but, Witch Camp last year. And I think it was Rocky, one of the co-founders of Modern Witch Movement, who led us all as a group down a path walking through the dark. And what we did was just go from one side along a path through the dark, tall trees. There was giant trees to the other side, and there's people waiting for us on the other side. And it was just learning how to be and not need any guidance or assistance or anything, and just using yourself to walk in nature and just be. And I remember that night so vividly, because I was like, why am I scared of this? Like, why did this used to scare me? Why does it scare me now? I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. And that's the mantra that we want to repeat to ourselves, that I am safe. Because when we're safe, we allow ourselves to move beyond this physical reality, and we allow ourselves to see things that we may not understand. But when we're allowing it, we're beginning to open up our world to so much more. And like after that, I got an opportunity to work at Bhakti Fest, and I was at Bhakti Fest, and that first night of the festival, or the first night of, me working at the festival, somebody took my headlamp, and it was one of those moonless times, or maybe it was obscured. And this was a huge piece of land. I mean, it was massive. So you couldn't always guide yourself by structures like normal festival structures. And I used that entire 4-5 days, whatever I was there, to walk that land in the dark. And I really gained the confidence. And now, like when I go camping, we were just in the redwoods. And when I go camping, I try not to use my headlamp. I just try to feel my way, try to use my senses. And, I use the headlamp for more detailed things. I don't want to trip on that pothole because it's there and I've tripped on it before, or, putting food away or something like that. But, using your senses as much as possible, because we want to train this. We want to train, our ability to see with our extra senses. So, this is what allows us to use our intuition. Because when we become aware of, our senses, and we really become in touch with our bodies, we get to really hone in our intuition. We always have it, right? Like even people who are like, I can't listen to my intuition. I don't have it. There are so many people who tell me that, but we all have it and we all hear it. I mean, it happens in the slightest of ways, for example, like, you have like everything looks good on paper for like some deal that you have going on. Oh, I have an example. So there was, I'm launching my business. Yay. Let me advertise it while I remember. Food Alchemics. And, I didn't really know exactly what I was doing at that point. I had these ideas. I had, intuition about what I really wanted to do. And I knew it involved health. I knew it involved food. I knew it involved like deepening our relationship with ourselves and Mother Nature and, everything that's around us, and really guiding us and individuals to learn who they are on an individual level, to stand in alignment with themselves, with their most authentic voice, to be able to share their medicine with the world. And I was like, I need a mentor. I need some guides. Like, I have a lot of amazing teachers and mentors and friends and everybody in my life, but I knew what I was calling in. I wanted somebody who'd really help me penetrate out of 3D and into the 5th dimension. I wanted people who could really help me activate my skills and gifts in new ways. And I was calling it in. And this is like, this is how magic works. Facebook targeted me with an ad, and it's an ad I've never seen again. It's an ad I've tried to search for. It's something that it came in and left. And it was for this woman who had this message, And I swear it was coded with my exact words. Every single word that I used to describe myself, my journey, what I was trying to achieve, everything, it was super coded. And so here I am all excited. And I talk to her, everything feels right, like everything feels really good. But there's just this like, I don't know, there's just this one little tiny thing. I don't know what it is. And so we end the call and I'm just like, I don't know. There's something that's just not there. So I asked the universe, I told the universe, if this is not for me, if this is not something that I should be pursuing, then the price is going to be so astronomical that I'm just going to be like, yeah, no. And when I spoke to her again, that's exactly what it turned out to be. And it was one of those situations where, yeah, I could have drained my bank account and I could have, worked with her. But like, it was that slight nudge that was just telling me. And then I very specifically said, like, this is what I need for you to do for me to, just help me to, realize that this is, even though everything seems perfect, it's not quite right. And what immediately happened after that is another teacher that I'm working with, who has been running this kind of mystery school and really teaching about all of this. Really, I've been going through amazing activations and, light languages and things like that. And I'm not speaking them, but, just activations through light language. And if you don't know what light language is, it's just a person who is channeling a language that's not of this world. And they're all coded with frequencies and they help align and help activate you. And I really, when I found this mystery school, I felt at home. Like I was like, I know this person, I know these people, like this is something that is right for me. And he wasn't taking any more students. That's why he was running the mystery school. This was kind of like the catch-all, like, where people who couldn't work with him, everybody fit into this bubble, and it was a wonderful place to go. But I was like, I'm meant to work with him. I really want to work with him. And then one day he says, I'm opening up another module. Like I'm going to take in a few more students. And he's like, it's going to be really specific. There's not going to be too many. And, they interview you and things like that. And I was like, great, I want to do this. And I went to the Redwoods and I'm camping. And so I missed all the messages. There's no messages, like I'm not getting anything. And I totally forgot about it. And when we're back 2 weeks later, I see all the posts, I see, the things, and, it says to schedule your call, click right here. I'm like 2.5 weeks late at this point. And I click there, there's like one slot available. It's the one time in my day that I have freedom. And so I click on it, I get the call scheduled. They interview me and they're like, we'd really like you to join the Leaders of Light program. And I was floored because, not only was it like, did I get in and all these things, and like, apparently people were not able to get their calls scheduled. Apparently there was a lot of technical glitches. Everything was aligned for me, and the cost was something that I could afford. And I've started, I think it's like 5 days a week. I mean, I'm going hardcore into these things and it's been amazing. But that's what happens when you listen to your intuition. You start to see the alignment in your life and you start to really strengthen the power of it. And that intuition is a quiet voice. It's really not, strong. It's just a slight little, nudge. And the key to it is to not doubt. You really don't want to start bringing in the masculine side, that analytical, like, what do I really think? Is that really true? And start to like create your pro and con lists and like do all those things that we've been taught to do. Because then what you end up doing is seeding it with more doubt. That feminine voice is it requires receptivity. It just requires you believing. And the more you train it and the more you work with it and the more you empower yourself with it, especially by saying yes to it and then, congratulating yourself or thanking yourself for really doing it and feeling those like molecules of joy and like reinforcing those neurochemical pathways that happen in your body when things work out for you. Because when they don't work out, then you're so focused on all the issues you're trying to manage. And then you start, the doubt creeps in more. So you want to really try to, take a chance, just believe in yourself and really trust your intuition. So what is intuition? This is something that, like, I feel like we take it for granted in terms of, oh, it's that inner voice. But what is that inner voice? And I mean, it can be described in so many ways. I mean, it can be your spirit guides. It can be your ancestors. It can be, 5-dimensional beings. But what I see it is as your higher self. So the question then begs, what is the higher self? So your higher self is this version of you that has already seen and lived through it all. We're all together. We're living our individual soul's journey, but we're all going towards, a similar goal, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's not linear, but we think in linear terms, and we're all moving towards the same thing. What is that thing? It could be expansion. It can be just the simple expansion of the universe, the opening of things. It can be, nirvana for some people. It can be, union with the oneness. Like there's lots of different ways to describe what that thing is, but we're all moving in that direction. And we have freedom of choice. We have, the ability to exert our free will in that goal. We'll all get there one way or another. It's just going to happen in its own way. So our higher self is like our future self. There is no moment except now, though, right? We're all now, but it's a version of us that exists in a higher dimension. It is the 5th dimension version of us. And this dimensional version of us has seen it and lived it all, knows every single possibility that exists. Now, there's no way to calculate the number of possibilities because every moment is a choice in your life. You get to choose in that every moment. And as every moment you're choosing something, you're creating a new timeline. You're moving in a new direction, and other timelines begin to fade away. This is how we change our past and our future in the moment of now. It's through the power of our choice. And we have guides that can guide us, including ourselves, our future selves. So when you hear that nudge, when you hear those things, this is you talking to you, trying to encourage you to make a decision that might get you towards that goal just a little faster. It might take you leaps and years, and it doesn't really matter how you get there. It's your choice. But if you want to accelerate, it's helping you navigate the best path. Now, the best path may not always lead to the highest thing, but you kind of see how it does, like maybe it leads to a little bit of disappointment first, and then the big, miracle happens. It's trusting the process, trusting yourself in the process. So, the question is, are you listening to that? Are you listening to that internal guide? So as I mentioned, that voice is quiet. Right? So what you want to do is really just center yourself and take deep breaths. Slow that heart rate down. Just really center yourself. What I like to do when I have a specific question in mind, like if there's something that I am seeking guidance from my higher self for, I thank myself for already knowing the answer and already having the best possible outcome. And then I ask the question. Now, this happened to me very recently. I was having, an issue with somebody that I knew, and there was just a back and forth that was energetically draining me. And I was feeling guilt. I was feeling, not sure how to proceed because I wanted to cut it off, but I didn't want to hurt the other person. And I just needed to figure out how to navigate it. So I asked my higher self what I needed to do. And the answer was very simple: set boundaries. It's the voice of your intuition or your higher self, because the voice comes through. It doesn't even have to be a voice. It could be a feeling. It can be a sound. It can be a vision of something. It's, however you best communicate with yourself, your higher self knows how you're going to receive this information. So it's a subtlety that comes through, and it is, non-judgmental. It's not going to say, do this because this is good for you, or do this because this, it's not going to give you an opinion. It's just going to be a very subtle direction. And I think that, when we begin to trust this direction, when we begin to trust that voice and we don't insert doubt into it, we then start to see how doors can open. Now, sometimes you don't understand what the message is. You don't understand, and you can keep asking, like, how is this serving me? Or, what can you give it to me in another way that I can understand? It may not come to you right away. It may come to you like in your meditation. It may come to you when you're walking down the street. It may come to you when you're brushing your teeth. It may come to you in 2 weeks. You don't know how it's going to come. It's just being open to be received. And the reason why you don't always know when it will come is because it's about vibrational matches, energy matches. So we live here in this physical third dimensional reality. We're so focused on the things. We have solid things, but really we're not solid, right? When you look in our body, we have lots of space between our cells. You get into the cells, we got lots of space within each cell. You want to go on the atomic level, you've got your electrons, and you get the subatomic level with the electrons spinning around an atom. And there is so much space. We're mostly made up of space. And so what happens is when we increase our vibration, when we increase our vibrational frequency, we are allowing ourselves to move beyond this physicality, beyond this, this third dimension, and we're raising our frequency so that there's more space, there's more vibration. And what's happening is when we're getting messages from the fifth dimension, they've got to meet us somewhere. Or if you're, I do try to communicate with higher dimensional beings, and they're trying to lower their frequency so that, and you've got to raise yours, and you kind of meet in the middle. It doesn't happen all the time, right? And it especially doesn't happen when our analytical mind is working. So it's about being in a state of surrender, in a state of receptivity. And that might be when you're walking down the street. It might be when you're going to bed. It might be when you're brushing your teeth. It'll be whenever it's meant to be. You just have to believe, and you just have to let yourself receive. So as I said, the idea is to not doubt. And, when you start playing in the realm of the third eye, which is opening up to other worlds, opening up to your intuition, your fifth dimensional self, your all these things, you can start playing in so many different spaces, like telepathy, right? How amazing would it be if we could communicate without these, right? We do it already. How many times have you thought about somebody and they called you, or, you heard something about them and you were like, wow, I haven't thought about them in years and they were just on my mind. Or I haven't thought that, it happens all the time. We do it already. Now you get a chance when your third eye is open to hone these skills. We can talk about things like clairvoyance, lucid dreaming. Again, another thing I want to give a shout out to the modern witch movement and Rocky, specifically Rocky for, because she led some dreaming workshops, and I was lucky to participate in them. And I learned so much about lucid dreaming. You can really, you're doing so much work all the time. You think you're going to sleep, but really what you're doing is doing work in other realms. And you're also doing work in this realm because you're healing narratives and you're figuring things out. And so thanks for the cake check. But they have, you can really do so much work on a dream level. And what I learned was how to not exert control so much, but be aware of my state while dreaming. And I had this incredible dream the other night. I don't remember the rest of the dreams. I was in dreams, but then something happened. There was this person who was right in front of me, staring straight into my eyes. And it terrified me. It scared me. It was more of the shock of the whole thing, right? You don't even know that you're dreaming, right? And then there's somebody right in front of you. It's like having somebody right in front of you when you wake up. If my daughter comes into my room, is looking at me when I wake up, it's kind of terrifying. And, I just saw this person and I was like, oh my God, I'm awake. And I was dreaming actually. And that's when I woke up. And there was something that, was happening in that moment. I don't know what. I don't know. Maybe they were imparting a gift on me. Maybe they were giving me a message. But what's really beautiful is like you can start, when you start honing these skills, you can continue to play with them. It's just about play. Just play and have fun. And so I am, as I go to sleep, having my sleep rituals. A lot of it is really about winding down, right? Like not having the phone, not having technology, not having all this light pollution. This light pollution really does distract from our third eye. And it's something that like we don't think too much about because it's around us. We need it. We use it. It's where we live. But it really does impact our sleep. And we're going to get into this with the pineal gland, just in a few minutes. But this is where, you want to make sure you have some nighttime rituals so that you are getting restful sleep and that you are able to play in your sleep. The other thing that's really beautiful to do, activating your third eye, is visualization. Now, I found visualization really hard for me. For some people, it's really easy. Like they can imagine things. They can imagine their future. They can imagine what they want. And for me, I really was in a self-imposed box of limitations. Like I just couldn't see anything different. I was stuck in a career that I was really good at, but really did not like. And I was limited to those skill sets. And I, in my mind I was, and I couldn't figure out how I could apply them. I mean, I had changed my life so many times at that point, going from a laboratory as a scientist and then going into corporate as a scientist. And it's two completely different skill sets. And like I'd already transferred skills, but I still seemed to think that I couldn't do it. So even though I had the example, there was this lack of belief in me. And, as I started really working with myself, working with my chakras, this is not just about working with one chakra. We are a system, right? Like we're a complex system, a complex machine that is so simple because it's so interconnected. We've got all the different systems of our body, circulatory, lymphatic, et cetera, et cetera. And what we also have is our chakra system, which is like a subtle body energy system. And when we work with them, we want to make sure that we're moving from the earth where we're grounded, because we want to make sure we're grounded into the earth and rising through, because you don't want to be up here astrally projecting and off in another dimension and find yourself not grounded to the earth, because that can lead to a little bit of, instability. So as I was moving through my chakras, as I was really doing the deep, dark shadow work, and this is what this is about. The third eye is not just about lightness and etc. It's about being able to move through it and to see beyond. So you elevate, move through the chakra system. And then I started working with my third eye. I started visualizing. Now a lot of like my work that I'm doing with a lot of these guides, these mentors that I've called into my life, that it's about visualizing business plans. Again, another shout out to the Modern Witch Movement, to Molly, the other co-founder, along with Rocky. I'm working with her on a website. And, as I am writing content for this, and as she's helping me work through, what I need for it, I am being able to, I'm getting this chance to visualize things that I haven't visualized before. We get to dream. And then the more you learn to dream, the bigger that you dream. The bigger that you dream, the more you draw things to you to help align you to that. And the reason I say dream big, like, I'm writing a book. It's a very slow going process, but I'm writing a book. And, I dream about being a New York Times best-selling author. And, part of my mind's wanting to say like, no, you can't do that. And like, minimize myself. But I was like, no, I can dream. I can dream for that. And what I'm doing is I'm aligning myself. I'm aligning myself to a new vision. And I'm allowing the universe to rearrange itself to allow this magic to happen. So never limit yourself. Like if you can dream it, it's possibility. It's a possibility that exists with us in the universe, and you get to create it because you are a creator. So, really, like we're in a time right now, which is all about like like structures that are falling apart, right? We're watching an old world crumble. We're watching a lot of darkness be revealed. We're watching, you know, just everything that we know, you know, just go away in some regards, or like change, and we're having to operate in a new way. And I encourage you, you know, mourn what you've lost, mourn the things that you want to mourn and that you need to mourn. Mourning is an important part of the process. But then learn to dream, learn to create this new reality, learn to bring something new in, because then you are calling it into you and you're calling it into this world, because you are a creator. So let's get into, I'm going to really quickly check the cake. I know we have about 12 minutes left, but let me just go quickly check it, because, you know, it's baking. All right. It definitely needs more time, and it might go a little bit over the 45 minutes, but we'll still get it all done, and we'll go from there. But, you know, this concept of, you know, visualization, let's say, you know, being able to see and being able to, you know, really dream, and being able to sense our intuition, being able to sense the things beyond us. It really, a lot of it relates to the pineal gland. You know, it's a really little known gland. Like there's a lot of, I don't know what the word to use is. There's a lot of talk about the pineal gland, but very little is understood about it. So, I mean, I read something by Rene Descartes, you know, the person who had written the statement, "I think, therefore I am." He had said something about the pineal gland that I'm forgetting right now, but something along the lines of like, you know, it's like the vision, the big vision. And what it is, you know, I think that, you know, it's been like written to be the seat of the soul. So it's kind of this part of us that's, you know, almost alien, extraterrestrial to us, because it's like the seat of the soul in that sense that, you know, it's going into higher dimensions, but it's within our body, right? So as I mentioned, like this is about, you know, transcending the body to see beyond. So we use the pineal gland to see beyond. What the pineal gland is known for is that it's where melatonin is made. So the pineal gland is like the master circadian rhythm regulator. This is what, you know, it's a master of time pretty much. You know, it allows us to be in cycle with nature. It allows us to, you know, be in cycle with the rotation of the earth and, you know, night and day and all these things. And it's also involved in the development of sexual organs in young kids. And it's, you know, it's because it has a lot of connection with the endocrine system and our system of hormones. But what I really want to focus on is this concept of melatonin, because melatonin is like, you know, it's, you know, it's been described as so essential for our well-being that, you know, it creates happiness because, you know, we're well rested. And what it really helps us do is adapt to changes. And that's what the pineal gland is known for, is this ability to adapt to change. I mean, talk about a time when you want to really be activating this pineal gland and really secreting your own melatonin. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who take melatonin to help them sleep. And there's a reason, like, you know, as I said, like we're exposed to light all the time. I can't get enough light on me to make me bright enough right now, but, you know, we're exposed to light all the time. And melatonin is actually signaled by darkness. We need darkness. And this is why I'm saying, like, a nighttime routine ritual, like try not to have any stimulus like light and any other sources, because you're really preventing the melatonin to be secreted naturally within ourselves. And so what does this mean? That like we live in a society full of light and we are preventing melatonin from being secreted. I mean, to me, it's like a society that is almost scared of that shadow work. scared of that darkness, scared of what happens when we are not in full consciousness, when we are not in full control. What does that mean? Like when this again is that masculine energy that we are moving out of and into the feminine of receptivity and, the night and the, just the playing of the elements of the earth and the uncertainty of it all. So, I really encourage you to think about the ways that, you can stimulate that pineal gland energy. And unfortunately, I'm only going to give you a few little tips and tricks, but there's really not much because this is not well known. The other molecule that is secreted by the pineal gland is DMT. Now, DMT is the God molecule, I think is what it's been called. And it's because it really does connect us to this kind of source consciousness that we're unified with the oneness of it all. And I feel like, it's synthesized. You can get it synthesized, but there's natural forms of DMT. It's 5-MeO-DMT. Plant version of it is mixed into ayahuasca. That's part of one of the two components of ayahuasca. The other source for natural DMT is from a toad from the Sonoran Desert called bufo. And, when you are working with these medicines, they connect you to, other realms. But especially when you have 5-MeO-DMT just as a pure medicine, it's an indescribable feeling of lacking of self and being one with it all while still understanding self. And to me, I think that's probably, probably like just a smidgen into like what it means to be in 5D consciousness. But what the pineal gland is believed to secrete 5-MeO-DMT. And nobody's been able to show this. Nobody's been able to prove it. It's been something that people are searching for. It's like probably such minuscule amounts. We probably don't need that much. Maybe we do, and maybe we have the capability of secreting it and we don't because our pineal gland is underutilized because of all the light pollution. And also because, it's just, we're not strengthening it in using it in the various ways that we can. There's also a lot of talk about the calcification of the pineal gland. And again, nobody really knows why it's calcified, why that happens. I think I read a stat, something like by the age of 17, like sometimes 40% of as much as 40% of the pineal gland can already be calcified. And there's no real understanding of it. And I really do believe that there's not as much research into things like this, right? To pineal gland. And because this is about source consciousness. This is about extending, getting in touch with the earth, getting in touch with our natural human beingness, being in touch with the otherworldly realms. And it's something that, I feel like, again, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, being suppressed, being oppressed. Are these the ways that our powers are being hidden from us, that we are forgetting that we are capable of so much more, that we are really, truly supernatural? And when you start to play with your senses, you will begin to see how supernatural you are. And when you start to develop that third eye and you start to play with things like lucid dreaming, I've barely scratched the surface of any of these things, and it has blown my mind open. So I highly, highly encourage you to develop that pineal gland, to really, really focus on, little things that you can do, like allowing darkness into your life. And that might be physical darkness, and that might be spiritual darkness, that might be emotional darkness. We're always taught to seek the good in life, to seek the pleasure, and we're hardwired for that, right? We're hardwired to, just feel good. We're also hardwired to feel bad. We can become addicted to those molecules of negativity as well. If we keep stimulating our system, and sometimes it's not purposeful. Sometimes these are ingrained behaviors. Like I had to break out of ingrained behaviors from my childhood. I kept attracting certain situations to me because this was a repetitive pattern. I was addicted to that. My body was addicted to that. And I was subconsciously drawing this stuff into me. So we can, rewire ourselves towards, what we are stimulated by, and we can train our body to respond. We can encourage, the growth of the pineal gland by really exploring, like I said, that shadow side of ourselves, by really looking into the darkness to better understand ourselves. Because I don't care if we're going out astrally projecting into another dimension, or we're going deep within. We are transversing like other dimensions, other realities. When you go deep within and you're working with your inner child, or you're sitting there unraveling your DNA and stretching it out and changing that epigenetic pattern of inheritance, I'm telling you, you are going into another dimension. So embrace that darkness. Let's encourage that. Let's encourage that pineal gland. So when we talk about decalcifying it, again, like not much to say research wise. I mean, there's some theories that fluoride might be having an impact. We've heard about fluoride in the water and all the controversies on that. And there's the fact that, the reason why fluoride might be calcifying it is because fluoride binds really well with calcium, and that's supposedly how it's supposed to be helping our teeth and things like that. I mean, it's hard to say. I just always remind myself, there is the external world that does impact us, but we still have the power to transmute it ourselves. If you're not like filtering fluoride out of your water, that's not like, it doesn't mean like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to activate my pineal gland. It totally means that you just have to focus. That's all. You just have to focus there. We can, like I like to think about decalcifying as, rather than like removing something that we don't really know too much about, like this idea of the calcium, clusters in there, but as providing ourselves with healthy tools that activate the pineal gland, that make it stronger. I like to think of it like a weightlifter that's like building muscle and like breaking out of a shirt. So let it break through that, those calcium blocks. But, how do you strengthen it? Eating high vibrational foods. We were talking about, the vibration of, just like living foods, because when we're talking about the high vibrations within us, this is, what is going to be high vibrational food, in the sense that, it's carrying nutrients for our body. It's really helping us. It's living in that sense that, these are earth medicines that help us. When we talk about specifically the pineal gland and, the third eye, you can talk about purple foods, but I'd say just, a good, healthy diet that incorporates, fresh food, fresh raw food if you can, and, fresh cooked vegetables, things like that. Oh, let me go check that again. There's R2. Still got some time on that cake. We might go a little late today, so I hope you're okay with that. But so the other aspect that we can talk about in terms of the pineal gland, I think about things like tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Now, there's a lot of specific aspects to that. It's not like, you can do this to yourself, and there are people who are trained in it because it has to do with the meridians and stuff. But I feel like what happens is when we do these kind of tappings, you can do it in different parts of your body. You can do it on your heart. But, what happens is we focus our attention there. And that really does help, just allow us to, focus in and hone in on that area. And, in my mind, I stimulate the pineal gland that way. Tapping is also really good because it releases tension and stress. When you do this, like I find I tend to do this a lot, because it's partially sight, vision. It's partially, lots of different things. When I think, I like to scrunch, like that's my thought process. So, tapping kind of helps release that tension there. I actually use this on my bunny. I learned this. I had an animal communicator, a wonderful woman named Michelle Bass, who, if you ever need somebody to communicate with animals, I can connect you with her, because we had adopted a bunny from a rescue who had a lot of abandonment issues and was really scared and shy. And it's taken her 2 years almost to warm up to us, and now she loves us. But we had to really go through a lot of process, and then thankfully with this animal communicator, it was a profound experience. Talk about being out in, seeing things that are way beyond things that you can grasp, watching her go into our bunny's brain and really communicate with her, and me being able to communicate with my bunny through through this animal whisperer, and watching the immediate change that happened in our relationship. It was profound. But one thing she taught me to do was to do the tapping, to do tapping on the bunny, because she said that animals really need tapping because they don't have the same outlets of expression that we do. We have so many ways to express ourselves. We can really get out our anger. We can get out our frustration. We can, like I just started with this, we shake it out, we do whatever. They don't have as many release tools. And so one way to release stress with them is to do the tapping. And I do it on her, what would be her third eye. I do it on various parts of her head. I do it on what I assume would be her heart. I don't know too much about a bunny anatomy to know exactly where her heart is, but in different areas. And I can tell you, she loves it. So, it's a good tool for just kind of releasing stress and releasing anxiety and releasing tension. So, tapping on that third eye can help activate it. Obviously, the standard gold standard tools, meditation, essential oils. Talk to Jenny Biondo. She will hook you up with oils. They're so wonderful. There's so many. You can use sound therapy, really just meditating and focusing on the third eye. There's so many ways to strengthen it. The point is to just do it. You really have to take that time to do it, because it is, like any part of our body, if we don't use it, then we lose it, right? And it's not that we lose it forever. You can develop it again. It just takes a lot more effort. So in small ways, just in small ways, think about how you can stretch your senses. Think about, just taking a moment, taking a breath, and just, being still, and maybe having a relationship with your higher self. Talk to it. One of the things that I learned from another channeler, her name is Gabby Kowalski. She was talking, she has this video show, the Intergalactic Galaxy show. I don't know. Anyway, she was talking about one of the things that she does to kind of develop relationships with her spirit guides and her higher self is when she's looking or experiencing or feeling something beautiful, something that, creates a lot of joy in her, she invites them in to experience it with her. And it's, again, you begin to develop this relationship, and you begin to, see it the way you might see a partner or a child or a friend or, a family member who's with you, where you're sharing that experience with them. You can develop that with yourself. And, when we were on that camping trip, every time I was looking at the most stunning view of nature, and I was just feeling this joy, I would just invite them in. I would invite them in to experience it with me. And honestly, this is something that I'm still learning to do. And it's not that I necessarily feel them with me right there. It's not necessarily that I know that they're there, but I believe it. And I think as a result of having all that time really doing that, I have a better relationship with my higher self right now. And I feel like I'm understanding the signs and signals and messages a lot more right now. So develop that relationship, and use your third eye to really just see beyond and really believe that these things are happening. Okay, so let's get into the food aspect of this, because we've spent a lot of time on the actual third eye. This cake is definitely taking a little bit more time to bake. Like I said, a lot of it has to do with the moistness and stuff like that. And you just keep watching it, and that's what it is. But we talked about, doing, ways to open up the third eye with food, some of it being color therapy. So like things like eggplants, blackberries. When we think of the third eye, the color is indigo, because purple is sometimes reserved for the crown chakra, but white light is also reserved for the crown chakra. So it's kind of like, that spectrum of purple to whiteness as you're going up, with the darker color kind of centering around the third eye. So think like blackberries and all these different foods that I'm blanking out on that are purple, but purple potatoes, there's a lot of varieties of food out there that, I'm discovering by just going to farmers markets, and which I haven't done recently, but, even in the grocery store, the co-op, sometimes things are seasonal. Summer is a great time to find lots and lots of different produce. Purple potatoes are really big right now. There's also like purple sweet potatoes, Japanese purple sweet potatoes. There's lots of different things. So, color therapy. That's part of the reason, I think lavender is part of it. I'm going to be using the essential oil of lavender. I'm also going to be using lavender flowers. I bought lavender flowers. This is not, we grow lavender, but mine hadn't flowered, so I couldn't use that. These are the lavender flowers that I bought. They don't really look purple. They have a hue of purple in there. I don't think you can see them. They're tiny. They're super fragrant. I use this for making tea. We're going to use it as a garnish on this. So, it's lavender is associated with the third chakra. I believe Jenny talked about it with the essential oil last week. If you didn't catch it, there's a replay of that. I'm going to we have beautiful sage growing in our garden, and it's been flowering I think the last 3 or 4 months. It's just so beautiful and so fragrant too. It has beautiful, beautiful purple flowers, and I really love the smell of sage. My daughter, the little witches when they're always making potions, and she loves to make me waters, and she will go into the garden and she'll pick up the rosemary, and she'll pick up the mint, and she'll make this mint rosemary water. And lately she's been using the sage flowers in here, and I have to say this mint rosemary sage water is heavenly. It's really good, and I think I want to start like making like big things of it that I can take without the actual leaves in my water, because I can make it a little difficult to drink at times. But I really love the potions she comes with. Yes, I know the sage is gorgeous, and Jenny is saying that clary sage is also great to help activate the third eye, which I need to learn more about that one. I don't know that one as well. But this is, I love these flowers. I've been cutting them as I see them sometimes, because it got out of control, and like they're just flowers on the table. It's really, really wonderful. What's really interesting is, remember when we were talking about in a previous episode with the throat chakra, and we were talking about the color blue and how there's so little blue, out there in foods. I mean, purple, there's a lot more. It still doesn't seem to be as strong. What I found is there's a lot of edible purple flowers, and I can't remember all of them on the top of my head right now. I mean, we saw the sage, we saw the lavender, but there's a lot of edible purple flowers. I think it's a fun way to kind of explore food, just looking for, I type in like, what are edible flowers, and like looking through the variety and like seeing the different ways you can play with them. It's a great way to come up with new ideas, and you don't know what they're stimulating. I mean, I'm sure you can read about them. I'm sure some of them are used as essential oils, and some are used in other ways that they may know some of the effects. But I just say, like, use your body to determine like what it makes you feel like, because even though that may be the idea of what it's supposed to stimulate, it may not stimulate that for you, and it may stimulate something else. I mean, this is part of what I want to do with food alchemics and helping people, is to really use their body intuition, because we all have our own genetics. We have our own history. We have our own way of life. We have our own triggers. We have our own everything. And there's nothing that is prescriptive for everyone. But you have all that knowledge and all that wisdom and all that power in you. Your body is always speaking to you. It is always telling you how it feels. So it's just about you being receptive to it, you being in touch with that. And you can do that by treating yourself as a science experiment. I'm a scientist, so I like to call it a science experiment, but you can see what the effect is. Like, why am I craving that? What is that craving about? And, try to really explore it and look at the foods that have that. Is that where there's maybe some correlation with the food? I'm sorry, look at the vitamins that food has. Maybe there's some correlation between the vitamins that you need within that food. Maybe it's an emotional thing, maybe it's whatever. But when you start to play with your body and you start to listen to your body, you're also developing your intuition. That's exactly what intuition is like listening to when you are speaking to yourself. And so I encourage you to do that. I mean, I started doing this 20 some years ago because I had so many digestive issues, and I just, it was like jumping from one thing to another and really not knowing what was wrong with me. And at the Himalayan Institute of Yoga Science and Philosophy, I started studying Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is the system of, or like the art and science of being, right? It's really teaching you about a more holistic way of being. What's really interesting, I find right now, is that when a lot of people tell me when they see an Ayurvedic doctor, sometimes it can be very prescriptive. It's like Western medicine. It's like, oh, here, take sage and have some ashwagandha and eat this 3 times a day and whatever. And they don't really understand, not the doctor, but the person who's, seeing the doctor doesn't really understand why that is being prescribed to them. Or maybe they do, but they're seeing it from the outside source. So I always say, all of the people that we have, that we go to for information, our doctors, our friends, our family, what we see on the internet, whatever it is, these are all shamans. These are all people who are helping guide us to a direction. The universe is speaking to us through them, but they're also a filter. And they're speaking from their experience or their knowledge, and you are the only one who knows what's right for you. So always develop your intuition. And yes, intuition is witchcraft. And I like that comment. I'm going to check on this cake. All right. This cake is done. Now, this cake is, so I just want to show it to you while it's hot. If you can see this, you can see that it kind of divots in the center a little bit, and that's normal. It kind of, unfortunately, it rises, and it rises all the way. And I stick a toothpick through to make sure that it's done. And, it pulls away from the sides, telling me that it's done. But it does tend to divot a little. If you are, concerned about looks and, once it's cool, you can kind of shave it off and trim it if you want. I'm going to flip this over onto a plate, and then I'm going to cool it on a wire rack. The wire rack is going to allow it to cool faster. The plate kind of, it'll keep moisture in it, but I just put it onto a plate because I want to, keep the top side top, if that makes sense. All right. So, you can see how easily that slid out. I hope you could see that I was back there, but that slid out really easily, partially because the sides were greased and because I had this parchment paper on the bottom of the pan. So I just cut a piece of parchment paper to the size of the pan, and I do that so that the bottom doesn't stick, and then that way it makes it easier. Now I'm just going to flip this over onto the wire rack, and then we'll let this cool. And in the meantime, I'm going to make the topping, and we're going to talk a little bit about ashwagandha. This is a little bit of a process, flipping cakes, but You kind of get used to it. If you don't care, you don't care. The reason I also put it like this is because the wire indents, you know, they just have an effect. So it's a little mushy. It's, you know, what I expect for a cake this moist, but it's good. So it's chilling out over here. Oh, I want to show my crystals while they're here because they're so pretty and I want to share. Look at this amethyst. I got this from a friend who really sourced her crystal well, and I've never seen such a beautiful piece of amethyst, and I was really glad to have it. So amethyst, you know, my daughter is sharing her heart with me tonight. She was gifted some money for her birthday from my parents, and we went to Joshua Tree Music Festival, and I thought she was going to choose a toy, you know, like all kids, and she went right to this woman with these crystals, and she chose this amethyst heart. Again, like I love how kids are, you know, always showing you their magic. And it's one of her favorite crystals that she has. I also have my kyanite and clear. This one is called a fire and ice quartz. I wish I could show you the rainbows that it has in it. But, you know, these crystals are really great for the third eye, opening up, you know, the intuition, both with color and, you know, this idea, like, you know, especially like with the kyanite, opening up intuition, with the clear crystal quartz, like really focus, you know, and clarity. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to make the topping for this cake. So we're also going to use melted chocolate, but I'm going to make a ganache. And the reason I'm using a ganache is a softer topping. And it's like, you know, when you do just melted chocolate, the chocolate will harden. And on this cake, I like to have kind of like a more, you know, gooey topping. So for this one, we just need to make it in a bowl. Now, unfortunately, with this induction burner, I can only use this pot. So I'm just going to clean it out really quickly. All right, so for the ganache, we are actually going to take about 3/4 cups of chocolate chip. I mean, I kept this at a very small scale because we really don't need too much. You can totally layer the ganache all over this cake. It's just a very chocolatey cake because there's chocolate in the middle of it. So, you know, we baked it with chocolate. So, I make a small amount of ganache. There might be some left over, which is really great to lick and just have fun with and eat. And so I have about 3/4 cup of chocolate chips here. I'm using, you know, Enjoy Life semi-sweet chips. I like this brand because, you know, they're vegan, they're free of everything that, you know, they should be free of, because they should just be chocolate. And that's what these are. So that's why I use this company. So we're actually going to melt the chocolate this time with milk. That's what a ganache is. And I use whatever milk I have on hand. I don't drink dairy, but I have, like, this time it's flax milk. I've used oat milk before. I've used nut milks. I mean, whatever milk you have, it doesn't really matter. So I have the 1/2 cup of nut, this one's a flax milk. And we're also going to add in a teaspoon of ashwagandha. Now, ashwagandha is an herb. It's a root, sorry, not an herb. It's a root that is from India and the Middle East. And, you know, in Ayurveda, it's considered one of the most powerful herbs that there are. And it's because that it really helps the body align in all of its systems. It's like this. It allows for synergy along all your biological systems. It's really important for the immune system. It really, it helps the endocrine function, again, related to the pineal gland, right? So this is why I'm including ashwagandha. But what it does, and it stimulates the brain, but what it's really known for is this concept of of ojas, which is life force, like chi. It's prana. It's moving this life force through us. By connecting all the bodily systems together, the life force can flow more fluidly. And when that life force is floating, and just all around us, and we're moving and nothing is stagnant, we can raise our vibration and open up our third eye. So again, that's why I chose to use ashwagandha, and why it's such a powerful root. It's, it doesn't really have that much of a flavor, and it doesn't really have that much of a taste, and it's not something that people tend to cook with. You typically put it in smoothies. It's really good. This is another way to kind of have a night routine and really stimulate that pineal gland for the darkness and the melatonin, and get into the circadian rhythms of the earth and yourself, is at nighttime before you go to bed. Like, I know a lot of people have their nighttime rituals, and they'd like to drink something hot, and it could be tea. And some people, it's what's called golden milk, which is just turmeric and milk. And but you can do that with ashwagandha. Stick ashwagandha in there, and it will really help prepare your body for the night. So because what it is it's adaptogenic. Which basically means it helps your body resist stress. And that's exactly what the pineal gland is known for too. It's supposed to be able to help you navigate resisting stress. And it's an interesting thing that this is kind of an underutilized gland. So I'm just going to heat this up. It's all together. And so ashwagandha, like I said, you can add into things like a hot liquid. You can add it into a smoothie. I like to add it into smoothies. Here I'm adding it into melted chocolate. Just play with it. That's all I say. Play with your food, play with your body, play with the universe, play with nature. I mean, life is about play. So this is melting pretty quickly, which is good. You just want to make sure everything is incorporated and that the chocolate is kind of, I guess, combining with the milk, but it's gonna, at first it might look like a little powdery, and as you let the chocolate melt, it's going to, get more of that chocolatey look. So just keep going. Keep it over a low heat because you don't want the chocolate to burn. This time we have the chocolate directly on fire. So that's why you want to keep stirring it, and you don't want it to stick to the bottom. All right, I think that's good enough because I don't want this to burn. So I'm going to take it off the heat. Let me go get a pad to put it on. Okay, so it just looks like melted chocolate. Otherwise, I'd show it to you. I mean, it looks like the same as the other one, but this time, it's a ganache, so it's not going to harden like the way regular melted chocolate would. So I'm just going to let this cool a little bit. And then once it's cool, I'm going to add in like 2 to 3 drops of lavender. It depends on how of lavender essential oil. I mentioned that, Jenny Biondo is, she's somebody to talk to about these essential oils because you learn so much from her. She's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. And, I have been inspired to start playing with them in my food ever since I started getting into them. I had a friend, actually, this friend just joined, Speak of the Devil, right? Lillian, hi, thanks for joining us. It's just, I was about to mention you. You were the first person who brought it to my attention that, you could play with essential oils in food. And, it was something that was just kind of been in the back of my mind. And so, thank you. Thank you so much. I love, see, this is that telepathy that I'm telling you about, developing your intuition. So thanks for joining, Lillian. Okay, so I'm going to add 2 to 3 drops of this. And I say 2 to 3 because it, sometimes comes out faster than I'd like. That's one. There we go. Okay. And just mix that in. So, ashwagandha is really good for the pineal gland. And as I mentioned earlier, cacao is amazing for the pineal gland. It's amazing for the body. It's amazing for everything. It's like one of the biggest superfoods. There are so many minerals in cacao, magnesium being the most important. Magnesium is so important to our cells and cell communication. And so, this is a wonderful superfood all around. It makes us feel good. I'm going to tell you about 3 chemicals just for fun science, right? 3 chemicals in cacao that make us feel amazing. So serotonin, it's not in cacao, sorry. These are chemicals. These are like, chemicals in our body that are produced in response to cacao. So this is what cacao stimulates in our body. Serotonin, which, just as the feel-good molecule, the feel-good neurotransmitter. Then there is phenylethylamine. And it's the love molecule. This is the one that makes us feel giddy, makes us feel good. When you feel like you're in love, I mean, don't you feel otherworldly? Don't you feel like it's like you don't exist on this plane of existence, that you're in another dimension, you're in another world? That's what love does, right? When you get those feelings. So that's one of the things that cacao stimulates. And the other one is anandamide, which is known as the bliss molecule, and it actually binds to THC receptors. I don't know if there's a relationship to craving chocolate while I'm high, but there might be. But anyway, I found out that binds to THC receptors. So chocolate is wonderful. And as I mentioned, you want to make sure that this is dark chocolate, that this is raw cacao, as raw as you can get. So that's why dark chocolate is really good. And I am going to get this cake on a plate, and then we are going to dress it. Okay, let me get a bigger plate for this. Get some things out of the way so we can make this look all nice and pretty. But you remember how I was talking about, there's questions of whether fluoride leads to calcification of the pineal gland. And the whole reason that fluoride's in our water, and the whole reason for the thoughts around fluoride, is to protect our teeth. What if I told you that cacao actually might do the same thing? It's kind of shocking, but it was one of the things that I had read about, was the fact that cacao actually might prevent tooth decay and help teeth enamel and all the things that fluoride is supposed to do. And I remember there was somebody who was making a, like a natural, it's not like paste, but it's like powder, like a tooth powder. And they used all these herbs and all these spices, and there was a little bit of cacao in there. And I thought that was for taste, but no, that's for teeth health. Cacao is good for our teeth. What if we could replace the fluoride in our water with cacao? We'd be happy all the time. But this is something that I think it's just one of those fun, magical things about the things that we love. I mean, it's a superfood all around for many, many reasons. But I just love the fact that it can protect our body in such ways too. I was thinking about this idea of the way we supplement, right? As I've been talking about, the systems that be, the powers that be, I feel like what we're in right now is this war on consciousness. It's not a war on anything else. It's a war on us being able to to focus on what is important. Now, I'm not minimizing what is going on in the world. Everything that is happening is real, where we have systems of racism in place that are so ingrained, that need to be dismantled, that, actually go way further back than, slavery. And it's so ingrained into our humanness that we don't even understand it. And then there's, the stuff that we're hearing about children, and there's so much stuff that's real. There are people who are dying from COVID-19, and there's a lot of things happening in this world. So I am not denouncing or saying ignore all of this stuff. All of this stuff is important to be aware of. But where are you focusing your attention? Where is your attention going? And, the more we distract ourselves, the more we are, spending that time in the light and not looking at the darkness, not looking at the darkness within us, not looking at the darkness of the world, but observing it, being the observer of it, and not getting into it, not sharing those narratives, not like continuing those narratives on, and instead harnessing our power, focusing our power, developing our third eye. It's amazing. It's amazing what we can do and how we can break out of that matrix. And so this is why I say it's a war on consciousness, because why is there fluoride in the water? Why are media channels like broadcasting the same thing over and over again to propagate fear? I remember one day, like, when I was talking to a friend, and, it was the beginning of COVID, and LA was going through the riots, and, lockdowns were happening and curfews were happening, and there was a lot of fear going on. And then like somebody started talking about, the murder hornets, and like, where are the murder hornets now? It's all distraction. It's all distraction. It's to keep you out of your power. The more you're in fear, the less you're going to focus on your supernatural abilities, your abilities to heal yourself, your abilities to create, your abilities to manifest anything that you want, anything. So you just have to believe in it. And, why is there this desire for distraction? Because they know we're powerful. They know we can do this. They know that we can break out of the matrix. And this came to my mind because as I was thinking about the pineal gland, I just did a little bit of a drizzle on the cake right here. Now I'm going to garnish it. I like pistachios. I buy the nut meat of the pistachio at Trader Joe's. I love pistachios with the shells, but I'm not going to, crack each one. I also have slivered almonds that I'm going to use. And as I said, the lavender flowers and the sage flowers. But I'm going to start with the nuts because they're the heavier, denser, and, they can form the base. And they're just going to stick on the ganache. But the reason I was thinking about this is because, I was talking to one of the parents that I know, and Anaya is... my daughter, she's a night owl. She gets that from me. I was the one who was in the clubs of New York till 6 a.m. or 9 a.m. during the walk of shame home. But, I'm a night owl. That's just, my natural rhythm. And she gets a lot of that from me. And like, while we're at home during quarantine, like, it's kind of hard to instate like going to bed at this time. And I want her to be able to express herself and be, within a reasonable amount of time. And, one parent was like, that's way too late for her to go to bed. And like, I'm like, even if I try putting her to bed early, she'll come out, she'll do things, she'll stay awake. Like, she will force it now because she's just not as exhausted out of her day. Like, school used to exhaust her. Now she's just not as exhausted out of her day. And so she was like, well, why don't you just give her melatonin? And I was like, I said no immediately because I myself was medicated quite a bit as a child. And, number one, like, I don't care if it's natural or if it's, prescribed. When we start teaching our bodies and teaching young children that all they have to do is take a pill, then we're never going to get into our superpower. We're never going to learn how to produce that ourselves. And, this is about learning your body and learning what you need to do. Now, melatonin as a supplement is really good, like, to help people. And, it's something that can help you and it can guide you. But when it becomes this thing that, this is what I need to do to sleep, then we have forgotten how to work with our body and trust the body naturally. Supplements are fine. But, to do something as a regular basis is something that I'm not comfortable with. And I'm especially not comfortable with teaching my child that. And so, when I think about the ways that, we've been taught to supplement everything, like, let's put fluoride in the water because, teeth health and all this stuff is such a problem, that, it makes me wonder, like, why are we being taught these things? And, there's nothing is all good, nothing is all bad. But it's just things to think about and to be conscious about. And the more we're conscious, the more we break out of the matrix. Okay, I'm going to show you this cake. All right, I don't know if you can see it, but, it's ooey and gooey. I'm going to slice through it. I would typically let this cool a little more before doing so, but I just want you to see that inside because, it is a decadent, rich cake. And, what we have in here is eggplant and almond flour and ashwagandha. Like, you know, these are the binders, and it's made of banana. So let me just take that and I'll slice it up here. But you can see it's a nice firm cake. It's really moist, really gooey. I ate it for breakfast the other day because I was doing test runs of this cake, and I had the most blissful day because it was just so much chocolate. So I want to thank you for joining me. I'm sorry we went over a little bit, but you know, thank you for joining me and letting me talk for an hour and 45 minutes. You can see I have a lot to say. I want to encourage you this weekend. This weekend is the Lionsgate portal 8/8. This is when there is an alignment of our sun with the star Sirius, and you know, this is a magical time. I couldn't think of a better time to work with your third eye, because so, you know, Egypt was based a lot of ancient Egypt was based on this connection to this star Sirius. And if you, the Sphinx is actually aligned with the way Sirius rises, and you know, it has to do with the Lionsgate and all these things, and I don't know the details, but it's quite amazing. Watch like ancient civilizations on Gaia and you would love it. But it's what it is Sirius is actually 2 times the size of our sun, and it's something like 26 times the light. So what we get is a light shower. This is a light activation. This is when the physical and the non-physical meet, and you know, talk about an activation time. Whatever you're working on, whatever you're doing, like this is the time where it's going to, you know, just be elevated, and you will work through timelines much faster if you put some intention into it. Now, you don't have to do a ritual if you want. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Myself, I just plan on meditating and setting intentions. Do whatever makes you feel like you are honoring this day. Let's take advantage of like the gifts the universe gives us. And so we have that this weekend. Work on your third eye. Let your higher self talk to you. You know, next week I can't believe it. I cannot believe we have gotten through the chakras of the body. The crown chakra is next week with Jenny and Delia. And I will be back the following for a recipe and whatever I will be talking about. It's always interesting to see what comes out of me when we get to the crown chakra. And, you know, please just, you know, keep working with yourself. Reach out to me if there's anything that you want to talk about with food or, you know, anything at all. I love to engage with you all. I thank you so much. I thank you to the Modern Witch Movement. Molly and Rocky, you've changed my life in more ways than you know. I'm really grateful for all that you do. And I'll see you all soon. Bye.